All right, big international news coming in. Russia has said it shot down 2 British-made Storm Shadow missiles. This means there's an escalation there between the borders of Russia and Ukraine. Russia has basically said that its air defense shot down 2 British-made Storm Shadow missiles. This is a day after the British media reported that Ukraine had fired the weapons into Russian territory for the first time. So I'm quoting from the statement that's coming. This is from Russia. Air Defence Forces shot down 2 British-made Storm Shadow cruise missiles. This is a statement from their Defence Ministry. And, however, they have also added that maximum effort is being made to avoid a nuclear conflict. Now, remember, more than a message, this is also a certain kind of a warning that Russia is sending out, that they have nuclear arsenal with them. They are trying best not to escalate and use it. However, this also means, remember, that in the region there's this consistent threat that comes in for Russia. Ukraine, 1,000 days is what we are talking about right now. India Today's Shiv Arur joining me for the latest on that. Shiv, how should one see this? Because when Russia says that we are trying to not make it into a nuclear conflict, actually says a lot, doesn't it?
That's true, Pooja. You know, the use of Storm Shadow long-range cruise missiles cleared by the United Kingdom is definitely an escalation. Now, remember, it comes a couple of days after Ukraine was cleared by the United States to use the ATACMS, the Army Tactical Missile System, which is basically a short-range ballistic missile.
Okay.
Both these decisions amount to a definite weaponry escalation as far as Ukraine is concerned. It must be remembered that both of these weapons have been cleared for use only in the Kursk region of Russia, a portion of which the Ukrainian military is currently sitting on, has occupied, and is hoping to use as some kind of a bargaining chip. The only issue now, of course, is that Russia has been triggered into tweaking its nuclear policy, making it potentially easier, the threshold lower for the actual use of tactical nuclear weapons. Now, I am a little skeptical about whether, any real nuclear escalation will happen from Russia's side, because remember, even with the use of such weaponry, and we're hearing now in our breaking news that some of these Storm Shadow missiles were intercepted by Russian air defense units, the fact is, on the ground, these weapons are not really game-changing. They aren't changing the quality of the battle in any real way. Let's remember that there's an incoming US president in Donald Trump in just a couple of months from now, and therefore the current escalations could possibly be seen as both sides trying to get as many bargaining chips as possible before, a Trump administration potentially tries to force both sides to the negotiating table towards a promised peace deal. So these escalations, while certainly alarming, the use of new weapons is always something to take into account, with the possibility of Putin, launching ever more destructive missiles at Ukraine. But I think as of now, the window of opportunity for both sides getting those bargaining chips in this war is closing, and that explains why these weapons are now being used.
Shiv, I take from what you have said a very interesting point that, remember, Ukraine is not doing it on its own. It, of course, is backed by Western nations like UK and US, but US specifically, is asking Russia to behave responsibly, in itself is going through a government change. And that is when we have seen this big escalation. Can we say then, Shiv, that Western world not really pushing for a de-escalation right now? It's their weapons that Ukraine is using, literally.
You raise a very, very important point, and I think a lot of experts agree that, a lame duck outgoing government like the Biden administration, sanctioning and approving the use of, bigger, longer range weapons, while it is exiting the White House, amounts to almost strategic malpractice. When you're on your way out, you don't make any big moves of this kind. You allow the incoming administration to pick up sensitive issues. You don't take big strategic decisions of this kind. One very cynical quarter feels that this is the Biden administration trying to spite Donald Trump, complicate things as much as possible before he takes office, in the White House, and leave a real strategic mess for him to clear up once he takes over as President of the United States. Be that as it may, the use of these weapons, like I said, is not changing the quality of the actual war. Neither of these two weapons, neither the Storm Shadow missile nor the ATACMS that have been cleared by the United States, are in any way a qualitative game changer. They are very, very advanced systems, Pooja. They're extremely effective weapons. In fact, the Storm Shadow, a variant of the Storm Shadow, is in service with the Indian Air Force as well on its Rafale fighters. And these are highly capable weapons. But given that this is a war that has been grinding on for over 1,000 days and counting, an incremental use of a new weapon is not going to be some kind of major game changer. Neither of these weapons are a Brahmastra which will turn the tide in favor of Ukraine. And therefore, I see this more from a geopolitical prism than a tactical battlefield prism.
Well, at least for now, President-elect Donald Trump will have an escalated war to really take care of, and someone who had said, if I were in power, there wouldn't have been a war. So a lot that he has right now as a responsibility on his shoulders. Shiv, thank you very much for all the updates and perspective, and to help us understand what are these Storm Shadow missiles and what kind of impact can it have.